Hello, this is Digital Accessibility, the people behind the progress. I'm Joe Walensky, the creator and host of this series. And as an accessibility professional myself, I find it very interesting as to how others have found their way into this profession. So let's meet one of those people right now and hear about their journey. All right, here we go with another podcast episode where I have the fortunate opportunity to talk with an accessibility practitioner. And today I am meeting with Jeremy Katherman. Hello, Jeremy. How are you today?
Hello, Joe. Great. It's good to talk with you.
Well, I'm in my Vashon Island home office, which is near Blink's headquarters office in Seattle. Where are you located?
I'm in San Antonio, Texas, in my
Well,
office.
Oh, all right. A home office there?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Well, it's good to have you to chat with you about your journey in accessibility. Good place to start, as always, what you're involved with right now.
What I'm involved with right now, boy. So I work for a company called USAA, and I'm their lead accessibility advisor. And I'm continuing to build up the accessibility office there, and we've got a good team. We're continuing to grow, and I work to help our members with disabilities be able to access the USA's goods and services.
Well, it's a big organization. I'm sure that's a really big job, and I definitely want to talk about it in a little bit more detail. But why don't we start by just kind of going back in time, and maybe if you can pick out some of the early areas or earlier times in your career where you life or career that you started to think about accessibility.
Sure. So way back when, I had a kind of tech support job at the university, and one of the tech support jobs was to take care of the disabilities lab. So I got a lot of practice with screen reader software like JAWS, and it was kind of a opportunity for me to make a niche, I've always wanted to help people, and it was a good opportunity. From there, I continued to develop my career, and I wanted to be a web programmer. Actually joined USAA as a network engineer, and then moved over to web programming, where accessibility came back, and I had an opportunity to work with some great folks on some accessibility, digital accessibility work, and just kind of felt like I had found something that really motivated me, and something that I enjoyed doing, and so I've been sticking with it and enjoying the opportunities to help make the world a better place through accessibility.
Well, let's just kind of stop at the point where you mentioned your work at the university level. Where was that at? What school?
I was at Brigham Young University in Provo, Utah. They had I'm not sure I remember what it was called anymore, Center for Disabilities, or but I worked with the folks there. Got to know some great folks, just helping them to do research and get their software fixed, because that was my job at the time. Mm-hmm. Interestingly, I met a few years later back in San Antonio, I met another person that I had helped there, and it was great to connect again. And
And so at the university, that's an area where quite a lot of accessibility practitioners get their start and in supporting a university department like that. So I imagine yeah, you had some decent resources and mentors and guidance to start uh, informing you about what accessibility was all about.
My at the university, it was mostly about the tech support, and I learned kind of as I could, and the leader there of um, the Center for Disabilities was able to help me a little bit, but most of my passion around accessibility came when I started working at USAA. I had a great mentor in Rob O'Connell who helped me to kind of hone my craft a little bit and get my feet under me. And together we've built a team at USAA.
Well, you've been doing that for quite a while now. I imagine that's been a big effort. How have things evolved at USAA over the time that you've been involved with accessibility there?
Oh, it's changed a lot. So initially it was very much design focused, and they were just Rob was doing it by himself for a long time, and I joined him, and slowly we continued to grow the team. Of course, organizational changes and leadership changes, and um, uh, we moved around quite a bit within the organization, as you do in big organizations. But over time, we continue to grow and mature, and from each organizational change, learn a little bit, bring in some of the strengths from that organization. We worked in the document space for quite a while, and that was great to establish some relationships there with the folks working on making digital documents accessible. And we developed new tools to help understand what our members' preferences are as far as communications, and built out our team with experts from different areas of accessibility, including facilities and a lot of digital accessibility, of course, and documents, and ups and downs, but it's been a great ride.
Well, how is it organizationally set up now? Is accessibility sort of a top level that supports all parts of the organization, or do individual departments or divisions take responsibility for accessibility for whatever product they're working on?
Good question. So we kind of had a hybrid model for quite a while where accessibility testing was centralized, and the different areas of the business would request accessibility testing to be done. But ultimately, they were responsible for their own accessibility. Since then, we've kind of evolved, and the responsibility for even doing the testing has been moved out to the areas of the business, and that's required a lot of training, and it's been kind of a bumpy ride, but I think it's the right model, just at least for us, because we just couldn't scale to the degree to be able to adequately serve our members and provide the accessibility testing that we needed.
You mentioned your team a couple of times. How is your team configured? What types of roles do you have within your accessibility organization?
We have some folks that came from accessibility testing, some folks that came from accessibility design, accessible design, and some folks that came more from a digital standpoint. We've got folks that are responsible for managing the accessibility of our third-party relationships and procurement. And then we've got our leader, Mary Gates, is certified in ergonomics, and we've got a lot of really great skill and expertise on the team in the diverse areas that we all kind of bring together to lead and guide and train and push the enterprise in the direction that we want to go.
And you mentioned, I believe you mentioned that it's digital services and also facilities that you have to address. That's definitely there are definitely a lot of different things between those two different parts of accessibility. How is that balanced, and what types of things do you do on the facility side?
That's a good question. So with the COVID pandemic, our facilities have been largely closed, and so our which has allowed us to be able to focus on some of our digital maturity and policies and standards. But we had a member of our team who's a master architect and familiar with the laws, and then we also worked with various third parties to be able to do assessments and kind of understand what our state was and work on policies and procedures to ensure that the facilities are being maintained in an accessible way and adhere to applicable laws, and that we manage that appropriately so that things don't get out of control.
On the digital accessibility side, do you work with designers to educate them on how to bring accessibility into their role if they're not familiar with it, or is it more of consulting where your team gets actively involved with the design of new products?
It's a little bit of both. So of course we work very hard to bring folks to train folks in accessibility awareness for disabilities and design. We've got some really great trainings on designing accessible products that help to expand thinking outside the box as far as accessibility. One of the major values at USAA is innovation, and we've done innovation challenges centered around accessibility, and then continue to reinforce that through trainings and awareness campaigns and such with designers and developers and whomever. But then corollary to your question, of course, is the other part of that, which is the consulting part. And it's not all about just helping people become committed and care about accessibility. It's also getting down and solving difficult problems. So that may mean that we spend time working directly with a development team or with a design team to solve difficult problems, to be able to serve our members with disabilities.
Mm-hmm. Well, I imagine with probably so many projects going on there that you have solutions in some cases that can be applied across different projects and other things that are unique. Is there a knowledge base, or how do you track what you've done and what's available moving forward to help in new development efforts?
I'm not sure. Rephrase your question.
Well, I'm sure that you're always coming up with a lot of solutions for for new design issues that may come up, accessibility solutions, and then that has some development component. Is there some format that you use for making sure that you keep track of the solutions that you've come up with, so that you can bring those into other situations in the future?
Yeah, of course. So there are two major ways that we do that. We have a component library in which we try to bake in accessibility into those components. So as we learn patterns and things that work, we'll bake those into the components, make them easier for designers and developers to use. And then in addition, we track on an internal website kind of some of our governance decisions and patterns that we've established for reference by our accessibility advisors.
There's probably a lot of things that you've been really satisfied with over the years. Looking forward, are there any areas, maybe not specifically USAA, but just generally, that you see as areas for accessibility practitioners to be paying attention to in the coming years? Maybe areas that you feel still need a lot more effort?
Boy, there's a lot of work that needs to be done. I think that the technical problems will get solved. For me, the thing that really is the difficult problem to solve is changing people's minds about accessibility and about disabilities. There's so much bias and counter motivations to have to overcome. And I think that's, to me, that's the greatest challenge, is to get into people's to tap into their motivations and help them to change their minds about accessibility, whether it be a business leader or a developer or designer. I've been very fortunate in that accessibility aligns very closely with USAA's mission, and I have not had a whole lot of pushback, although it happens. But I've thought a lot about this, and I think of it in terms of a continuum for motivation. I call it the commitment compliance continuum. And on one side, and you want to tap into what drives people and try and move them along that continuum towards being committed to accessibility, but somewhere along that line, they're doing accessibility for either because they're committed to it and they want to do it, or because they're checking the box and they want to be compliant and uh, and knowing what motivates people, I think is so important to being able to get accessibility done, so that everyone is able to have an equal experience and the accessible experience that they deserve. And sometimes that means pulling compliance kind of levers. Sometimes that means pushing them to be committed to accessibility, but they're going to be somewhere in between there. And hopefully, over time, you can change people's minds and push them along from doing it because they have to doing it because they want to. And I think that would be the biggest challenge, is to help people want to do accessibility because they want to help help everyone, help folks with disabilities, help themselves later in life when everyone gets a disability. And yeah, I think that's the biggest challenge.
Well, Jeremy, it's been great to have the opportunity to hear a little bit about your journey and how things are going at your organization. So thank you for taking the time to share your expertise in this area.
Oh, my pleasure. Thanks for having me, Joe.
Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.